نحمده ونصلي ونسلم على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيبنا وشفيعنا ومولانا محمد صلى الله تعالى عليه وسلم ورسوله النبي الأمين المكين الحنين الكريم الرؤوف الرحيم. أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قال الله تعالى في شأن حبيبه إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما تحب وترضى بأن تصلي عليه. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Most respected ulama, my respected elders, brothers and sisters in Islam, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. As it is customary in the Muslim community, before we start off with the recitation of Quran and praise of the Holy Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, we have to announce, as it is customary in the Muslim community, please, you are blocking the driveway. So kindly remove your car if you're creating an obstruction in the driveway there. Inshallah ta'ala, Allah will reward you abundantly. Thereafter, we can take the name of Allah and continue with the rest of the program. So please, yeah, I can see the car right now. I can't identify the car from a distance, but I can see it's creating an obstruction. Please remove your car immediately. Alhamdulillah, once again, the Muslim Alliance and is hosting a program today in terms of a very, very important topic, right? The health, economics, and environment in eschatology. And alhamdulillah, with the grace of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we have a specialist in Islamic eschatology in the personage of Sheikh Imran Hussain, who hails originally from Trinidad and Tobago, and he's the student of the illustrious His Eminence Hazrat Maulana Fazlur Rahman Al-Ansari. He's a graduate from the Alimia Institute of Karachi, and he was the gold medalist in the era of Sayyidina Maulana Fazlur Rahman Al-Ansari, rahimahullah. And he's been throughout the world, and he's got a very heavy schedule. He's 73 years of age, and it's been his passion for over 25 years in terms of studying the Akhirus Zamaan and the importance of the hour. And he's done a whole lot of groundwork in terms of that, the fourth element of the hadith of Jibreel, which is very rarely alluded to and discussed in detail. We are privileged to have him here this evening, and with him on the panel today discussing health and environment in particular are two also well-known experts in their field. One is Dr. Farid Salih, who hails from Barberton, that very same Barberton of the world-famous long green mango. Okay, and he's a medical practitioner as well, and he's been through some also medical issues in terms of having had a bypass, and he was diagnosed as being diabetic. He has a particular interest in orthomolecular medicine, and he's been engaged in some groundbreaking work in terms of alternative remedies within the paradigm of the medical field as we know it today. And alhamdulillah, he's a living example of his own research. Right? The best guinea pig is yourself, obviously. So alhamdulillah, he's a living example of that, inshallah ta'ala. In terms of speaking of him, the best introduction that I can give to him as far as I'm concerned, that he's the grandfather of Khalid, Hamza and Ahmad. And more importantly for us from a local Durban perspective, he's the Wewai of our Haji Osman Hafiji there. So that's his claim to fame as far as we are concerned, alhamdulillah. And of course we have Brother Nazir Jamal, who is part of Radio Al-Ansari. He's one of the directors and the manager of the radio as well. And if for those of you who don't know, he has his honors in environmental science and the chief and senior environmental officer in the eThekwini municipality. As well as the fact that he is also, he has done a lot of work in geography and so on there, and he's working a lot in terms of pollution and whatever it is. So he's on the, his finger is on the pulse in terms of environmental issues and so on there, which are very, very critical in terms of climatic change. And of course, besides that, he will be delivering his talk. The format will be a very simple one. We'll have a presentation of 10 minutes on health by Dr. Farid Salih, then a 10-minute presentation by Nazir Jamal, and thereafter a 15-minute response and comments by Sheikh Imran Hussain on the issues discussed, and then we will come back to our panelists again who will offer some solutions in terms of the issues that they have discussed, inshallah ta'ala. Without much greater ado, I'd like to call upon Dr. Farid Salih to Nazir Jamal to present his presentation here, and I think I can see something there. Our home is their hope, okay? And he will be delivering a talk. He will not be beatboxing.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, brothers and sisters, and everyone who's listening, I think, and watching. I think the best way to start, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, is to look at the beautiful picture that's there called Earth Rising. It's one of the pictures that was taken from Moon. And I think that really gives us a synopsis of what Earth is. This is one part of Earth, but majority of it is blue. And that's why we know majority of our land, or rather the earth that we live in, this beautiful ni'mah and blessing Allah has given us, is full of water. And that's a bit of a close-up picture of the earth. And I think, again, the picture says a lot, 1,000 words, as they say. And it gives a synopsis of what we're looking at today. So hopefully I would like to achieve a few things. And I'll just go a bit forward so I can see. The one is the current status of the environment at this moment in time. The next part is man versus nature. And I think it's quite a difficult topic to get into because it's one that we face daily. Another issue is resource depletion. It's a huge issue we're facing. Global warming. And then each aspect that I discuss, I'll bring a South African context to it. Something that I've dealt with either here in Durban or around South Africa. And finally, again, some solutions to those issues. The first issue I'd like to raise is biodiversity. Now, some of us might wonder, well, how is that a huge issue? Well, biodiversity, if you really look at the concept of it, is the entire ecosystem that we live in. It's how things run, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it run, and how it is running at this moment in time. How every creature is related to every being. And this is one thing that we as humans now have to realize our responsibility towards creation. So from animals to flora to fauna, how do we connect? But at the same time, how do animals and plants connect to themselves? Now, when I talk about biodiversity, the impact of biodiversity seems to be depleting. The impact rather is increasing. And I think most importantly is that we see from a South African perspective, let's take rhino poaching. It's a huge issue across the world, but South Africa seems to be one of the areas with a larger problem. And I think the issue there is with regards to the amount of species. So there's thousands and hundreds and millions of species. If you take a few animals, there might be various species of the one single animal. But the most important thing is to realize is that Allah has created this for a reason, and the reason that we believe is, from a scientific point of view rather, is that there's ability for animals to then have the space to grow and the space to develop. So if you look at some of the pictures, just one before that, again one before, the next issue that we would look at is obviously climate change and global warming. Now that's a hot topic everyone's discussing. It's a majority of the businesses now are trying to become more green, more responsible. And if you look at that picture, it shows the degrees that are increasing. So the concept that many speak about is that the earth is warming up. And I think if you see South Africa right now in the context, we are feeling that generally. If you go to Johannesburg, where I was living for about 3 years, you see that the temperature there was very dry, and now it's gone extremely dry. The heat has gone up. In Durban, we're finding the humidity levels have already risen, and we're seeing this impact, but of a very fast rate, an accelerated rate. And the concept that scientists have well, rather somewhat proven is that man is the cause of it. And so there's many concepts here that you would look at, from the emissions that occur through our own vehicles, through companies, through the burning of fossil fuels, and increasing the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. So as we burn these fossil fuels, the carbon levels increase, and this creates a layer that's within the, protecting from the atmosphere. Now we have a beautiful, many layers that occur, and these are protective layers that prevent us from actually feeling the heat of the sun. If we don't have those layers, then there's huge problems. We won't be able to survive on this earth. Earth would not be what it is today because the temperatures would be too high for any existence. So these protective layers help us prevent us from finding that heat. And the atmosphere itself is now what we're really concerned about. The idea is that these carbon dioxide fumes are creating their own little layer, and as the sun emits its rays into the earth, they are not allowed to reflect back out. So there's a level of rays that enter into the earth and another layer that comes out. Through the carbon dioxide layer, it is now causing another layer to prevent this heat from, or rather, being reflected off the earth. This is causing global warming. Now, there is a theory of global cooling. I will not get into that, but it's another theory that is developing. But majority of the scientists around the world believe in the idea of global warming. I am rushing through it. The time is obviously the essence. But those are the pictures that you would see across the world in terms of floods, increases level of sea level rise, one of the issues. Because the heat that is now being trapped within the Earth's atmosphere is now melting obviously right in the North Pole, the icebergs, and melting the snows on the mountains, and that is increasing the sea level rise in a very simplistic form. So these are some of the natural disasters we are seeing across the world, from earthquakes to massive tornadoes to sandstorms across the land. And this is a quick synopsis of over many years, scientists have drawn this up. So this is the first picture. If you go to the next one, you'd see already temperature increases across the world. If you look at Africa, already we're now completely red at this moment in time. So it shows how the temperature has risen, and this is scientific proof of this from, across many years. The next issue then is deforestation. So apart from the biodiversity, now man has been removing massive areas of forests. And forests are a very beautiful place for animals to thrive and to live in. We are now removing this natural environment for them to build our houses, to build industries, to build suburbs, to build cities. And apart from all of that, forests are the massive place where we find oxygen. We know that as you plant a tree and you find the trees are the ones that provide majority of the oxygen on Earth. So if we have less trees, we have less oxygen, higher carbon dioxide through global warming, you've got problems. So again, another issue, well, deforestation, then waste disposal. Mankind is one of the greatest consumers of resources on this earth. And yet we are not the largest in population if you look at certain species and certain animals. However, waste disposal seems to be one of the greater problems we face. If you look at a South African context in our landfills, right here in Durban, Bisasa landfill site is being closed down. Now the question is, it's a Springfield one, as everyone knows, where does the waste go to? So now we've just at the department have received an application for a new landfill site, two new landfills, one in Cater Ridge and one in the area of Marion, Cater Ridge, and the other area is Shongweni. The interesting fact is they only want to build this in 50 years' time. So I spoke to the developers and I asked them, but in 50 years' time, don't you think there'll be better technology? I mean, now that the recycling industry is booming, don't you think we won't really need at that time, 50 years' time? And he says he believes it's going to increase. The amount of consumption through the demand and supply system, where the nature of people is that they're demanding so much, obviously the supply needs to come in, then what happens to that waste? So there's a lot of work that's being done generally from larger businesses, trying to reduce the amount of waste, but still we see this as a huge problem in terms of current environmental issues as waste disposal. Landfill sites are not the option. They're definitely not the option. The amount of degradation to the environment, of large spaces of land, to the decrease in biodiversity, to the influx of vectors, this is a huge issue. Another one, as I mentioned earlier, I'll talk about was natural resource depletion. Now, if you look at this picture of this beautiful dam, this was taken in 2011, and this lake now, it looks, if you go to the next picture, looks like that. So already you see massive destruction. In a South African context, let's take Hazelmere right now, at this moment as I speak. The levels have dropped below 25%. There's not enough water. I know there's heavy rains that we had. That's not enough of water currently in Durban. So now they say the next world war is going to be fought over water, and I can absolutely believe that. There's a case that I'm dealing with now in an aquifer that's setting up in the areas of just past Pietermaritzburg, where it's a pristine water that hasn't been touched. But now industries have taken that over to bottle this water. So it's spring water, as they call it. But the idea of that is that every bottle that we drink is actually taking about 7 to 8 bottles to make. So every water bottle that you buy, it actually uses 7 to 8 liters of water to make that one bottle of water. So that, again, from a water perspective, a huge issue in terms of depletion of our resources. If you look at then, so just can go back, one of the other issues is mining. So you get various types of mining, and one of the more damaging sources of, or rather forms of mining is most probably your open cast mining. You'll see large scales of land being wiped across. And this is removing ecosystems, it's removing biodiversity, and it's just scarring the land. If you saw the picture in the next slide, you'd see how scarred the land in Canada. This is a picture in Canada. Pristine forest now is being used for this type of rock and soil. Again, large areas of rivers now are being depleted because the amount of water that's being used and is needed. I know the story in Durban was that we are using reused water. So water that we're drinking is actually reused, and that is true. For the past many years, we've been doing that. So the water that we go through our sewage pipes that comes out from the toilets and the showers and everything, goes to your sewage treatment works. It's treated into a whole lot of processes. Chemicals are added, flocculants to take out the waste. It goes through screening processes. It then goes to processes where it's clarified. And finally, when it comes out, it's pretty much clean water, but water that is not drinkable, but water that can go into a river. And obviously, as it goes downstream, it's pumped back up again, cleaned with chlorine, and then fed to us as water. It's been done for a long while, and the question was, is this halal water? So, Akhirus Zamaan and maybe Sheikh will be able to explain if it's halal water. Just to go back a few slides, sorry, there was one point I wanted to mention with regards to air quality. Now this is a huge issue we're facing across the world, and I'll show you some pictures later on about some of the cities that you cannot live in anymore in parts of Asia. But in terms of resource, air is the resource that we survive on. And when we are now affecting this negatively, this part of such a resource that we require just to survive, we then have problems which affect our human health. And I'll discuss that a little bit later on. So just some of the pictures I wanted to show of rivers and lakes that now have been dried completely. And the next issue is pollution. And this is my love and joy because I deal with it daily. Pollution, as you see, is a huge phenomenon that occurs around the world, but in South Africa, it seems that it's really affecting. This is a picture of fishermen now trying to fish in a place where it's now completely polluted. So just to go through some of the issues with pollution, I mean, there's water, there's air, and land, and I spoke to a lot about this already. Just to go to the pictures, we'll give a lot. This is one of the air quality issues which I spoke about. This is a city you could see normal at night, and now through the air and smog that's in the city due to the the vehicle fumes through the industries, you're no more able to even walk into the city. Another picture of a city now completely covered in smog. You'll see this sometimes in Durban. In the morning when you go driving to town, you see this orange layer, or sometimes a very foggy layer. It's not actually fog, it's pollution through the day's work now, and it's settling onto the atmosphere. Again, massive industries causing heavy air quality issues around the world. And a picture, this is a very interesting picture because it's coming from, it's actually the Gulf of Mexico where one of the massive oil rigs were exploded. And this is what you're seeing is it's reaching now at quite a high level, closer to the upper stratospheres of the environment, of the air. And what happens to this? You could actually have this burning here in the Gulf of Mexico, and this could affect parts of another part of the world, completely on the other side, even Africa. And this is why we say air is such an important thing, because it can travel from one part of the earth. Water, yeah, okay, maybe your ocean polluted a little bit, but when it comes to air, it moves across. This is just a picture of a bird completely smothered in oil after a massive oil spill in the ocean. And one of the final issues I wanted to mention is genetically modified organisms. A very contentious issue because in Malaysia, apparently there's been a fatwa given, and I think Sheikh can speak a little bit more about it, that it's proven to be halal, genetically modified organisms. So it's quite a contentious issue from a scientific point of view and another environmental point of view. I believe it's a complete no-no when it comes to, this is the apple that's now looking like a lime, and the effects that it has on human health. And Doctor will explain a little more about the pesticides that are used and the seeds that are being now created in a little lab, and now they're being sold to massive markets, to farmers to be used. So they can create the perfect apple, the most, the tastiest apple, the biggest apple, the reddest apple they want in whatever way. And this goes beyond fruit and vegetables. It goes now into animals that they've created. And now the question comes in, is this acceptable? And what is the impact on the biodiversity again? What is the impact on the environment? And I think finally the public health issues. So all of this, as I spoke about, I mentioned at every time the issue of human health. And I think humans being affected, not only us, but obviously the environment is one, but us as humans now being affected by our own damage to the environment. And you see issues across the world with starvation, with issues of, with regards to food security, and environmental issues and respiratory diseases through asthma. And you see that in South Durban Basin, huge issues with many cases due to the high levels of air quality, rather low air quality. This going to solutions, so I'll stop there. I think we are coming back to solutions, but thank you for now. Shukran.
Jazakallah to Brother Nazir Jamal for that very quick but very, very effective presentation of his. And without much further ado, I'd like to call upon Dr. Farid Saleh to come forward it's interesting, what he spoke about in terms of, Quran speaks about in Surah Al-Rum, ظَهَرَ الْفَسَادُ فِي الْبَرِّ وَالْبَحْرِ, that fasad, corruption, has appeared on the land as well as the sea. بِمَا كَسَبَتْ أَيْدِي النَّاسِ. And Allah gives the reason. It is because of what the hands of man themselves have wrought. لِيُذِيقَهُمْ بَعْدَ الَّذِي عَمِلُوا لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْجِعُونَ. So that they may taste the effects of their own deeds and what they've done. So that لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْجِعُونَ, so that they may return to the divine order, which is وَالْأَرْضَ وَضَعَهَا لِلْأَنَامِ, that the earth Allah has created for creation, not for man only. Okay, we'll call Dr. Farisali to come forward now, inshallah ta'ala, and give you his presentation.
نحمد ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. My respected elders, fellow panelists, Sheikh Imran, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Also our listeners on the internet, wherever else this goes to. When Allah Ta'ala put Adam alayhi salam and our grandmother Hawa, may Allah Ta'ala be pleased with both of them, on this earth, He told them, you will be going to the earth for a time, and then you will return to this if you listen to the messengers that I send to you. What is that time? The time is from Adam alayhi salam to the descent of Isa alayhi salam. Before Isa alayhi salam comes, there will be signs, and this is the signs of the Akhirus Zamaan. That is a science that our Sheikh Imran Hussein, if you want to dig deeper into that, then you can read his book, Jerusalem in the Quran, to dig deeper. From our point of view, did Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam tell us anything that will happen in those times regarding our health? He told us there will be new diseases. He also told us your diseases will come through your stomach. He also told us that there will be, that for every disease, there is a cure. So if we don't have a cure for something, it means we are not looking hard enough. Or perhaps we are not looking in the right place. I am going to concentrate now on a certain group of diseases that have plagued mankind for the last 100 years. These diseases are commonly called chronic non-communicable diseases, and they include diabetes, coronary artery disease, cancer, neurodegenerative diseases. It means that the brain and the nervous system is starting to break down in children, in elders. We call it different names. We call it multiple sclerosis. We call it Alzheimer's disease and that kind of thing, you see. There's also an epidemic of autoimmune diseases. What is this? Autoimmune disease is when the immune system that is supposed to guard and protect you and to heal you is gone haywire, is actually attacking you. And what does it attack? Everything from the head to the toe. Now, I have been doing research on this for the last decade. And in my opinion, and as Sheikh likes to say, you might differ. But in my opinion, all of these diseases share one common link. I'm not saying that they are all coming from this one link. There might be other causes as well. But the major cause that links all of these common diseases that we experience in our families and in our communities and in our country and in the entire world, except where there are communities that stick to their old traditional diets. Like the Hunza Kut, like the Maasai, they depend on the cow. They drink its milk, they drink its blood, they eat its flesh, but they don't have any of these diseases. The Hunza in those mountains there, they drink glacial water. That means water that is coming out of the glacier. They are eating crops that come out of the soil that is enriched by this glacial melt. They don't have any of these diseases. So, why is it that they don't have? They've stuck to their traditional diet. We have changed our diet, and the trouble started in 1900 or thereabouts. And the common link between all of these diseases is oil. What has happened is, when industrialization occurred, oil was being extracted in a very gentle manner, and the oil was never destroyed. So when you use this oil contains certain things that your body used to make itself. But when industrialization started, they started using presses. That means you want to make more. Time is money, so they put in lots of seeds and they squeezed it. And the oil that came out from there was damaged and destroyed and toxic instead of being nourishing. And that is when the trouble started. So there were very few cases of coronary artery disease before 1900. But the first recorded case is 1921 in the records of the CDC, Centers for Disease Control in Atlanta. Go and inquire from them. The first recorded case of heart disease then. This is a new form of dying. This form of dying never existed before. The usual form of dying was in battle, infection. You have a slow lingering death. You might be living very nicely up till about 3 weeks before your death, and then you get sick and you take to your bed. And then this is a ni'mat from Allah because it gives you an opportunity to make tawbah. It gives you an opportunity to connect yourself to Allah Ta'ala. But now, you clutch your chest, you start sweating, and you fall down dead. It is a new way of dying because we have created a new way of living. And this new way of living is actually deadly. We have changed our diet. The human body Allah Ta'ala made, it heals itself. Consider that. It heals itself. It works completely on its own. It's completely automatic. But it requires 50 things for you to put into it. It cannot make it itself. It must come from outside. If any one of these 50 things is short, you will suffer from malfunction. This malfunction, depending on what the symptoms are, we group it and we call it a certain disease. One of the things that the body requires is a certain type of fat. We don't have the enzymes to make that fat. It's called omega-3 and 6. These two fats, your body is made from it, your cell membrane is made from it, the cell membrane, the mitochondrial membrane is made from it, and if the mitochondrial membrane does not work, because we are putting toxic fats that are not working anymore, then the power station, now mitochondria is a power station, it starts going down. And now you start getting load shedding or blackouts like the ESCOM business. So when you get a certain community that has load shedding, everything stops. Your food goes rotten. You can't do anything. Same thing in the body. When the mitochondria are damaged, you start getting dysfunction in the body. And this is coming from the oil. Because we cannot make the omega-3s and 6s, and we are feeding it the wrong one. Why? Because we don't know about it, and neither are we aware of it. So coronary artery disease, it is characterized by the accumulation of a porridge-like substance. That is what atheroma means. Recently, when I say recently, I mean 40 years ago, and we haven't heard about it yet, some researchers decided to take it out and see what is actually inside here. And what do you think they found? They found damaged omega-6s, which is coming from our cooking oil. Cottonseed, canola, soya, sunflower, because that oil is damaged and destroyed. That is what is leading, that is what is accumulating in there. How do we know that if you stop the oil and you start using proper oils, this thing can reverse. It takes 6 months to a year, but it can be done. That is how we know that this is actually the one that's causing it. When you have your blood control system, the pancreas produces insulin, your cells have a receptor. This receptor is made up of omega-3s and 6s. It's also got magnesium, it's also got chromium, it's also got some saturated fat. But because we are taking this damaged oil, this receptor is not working, so the insulin comes, but the receptor is not responding. This is diabetes. And this type of diabetes did not occur before 1900. How do we know that? There was one type of diabetes where the pancreas was not producing enough insulin. That is called, later on it was called type 1 diabetes. That was the only diabetes we knew about. Then in the 30s, Benting and Best, who invented insulin, they noticed something strange. that there were a group of patients that did not respond to the insulin like they were responding before. So when they found out and did further investigations, they realized that there is enough insulin in the body, but the insulin receptor is not responding. So they called it type 2 diabetes. This type 2 diabetes is in response to the damaged, toxic, fake industrial oils that we have been tricked into using as food. Who is responsible for your health? You are. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, new diseases will come. Is this a new disease? I think so. Never existed before. Because we never had this toxic substance before. In the brain, there are blood vessels. These blood vessels have an interior lining. That lining is made up of endothelial cells, and these cells are made up of omega-3s and 6s. But it requires 2,000 omega-6s to 1 omega-3 to make that membrane. But because the omega-6s we are drinking and eating and consuming in this fake junk food, this membrane starts to leak because it hasn't got enough building material to maintain its integrity. So now you get things leaking into the brain that is never supposed to go there. This is what is called an immunological privileged site. That means very tight control as to who will go in and come out. But this system breaks down. So any molecule that's going, it starts leaking into the brain, and the brain has got an immune system, it's called glial cells. They become inflamed. They are very good when they work, but chronic inflammation, it leads to all of these diseases. It leads to a breakdown in the brain. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? You see? Can we reverse this? Many people have experienced a reversal of their symptoms and their diseases when they start, changing their diet and lifestyle. Autoimmune diseases, your intestine is made up of little lining of cells. These are called enterocytes. These cells are also made up of omega-6s and 3s in the ratio 2,000 to 1. So now when you are eating this fake oil, this becomes leaky because you are giving, if you made this masjid with broken bricks, it will break. You need pristine bricks as Allah Ta'ala made them in the first place. You see? So this is, as Imam Sahib told us, these diseases is as a result of what our own hands have wrought. You see? Now when this thing leaks, there are proteins and things leaking into your bloodstream. It's never supposed to be there. It inflames the immune system, and now if there is a connection, if there is a semblance between the proteins that are leaking and any part of your body, your immune system will now attack that part of the body. So now you got autoimmune diseases. And all of these, I am trying to draw, I am trying to say that these diseases did not exist before. It is only when we mistakenly started eating these fake, toxic industrial oils that these diseases started. So, if we are looking to cure this thing, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam told us, your diseases come from your stomach. So therefore, if we are looking for a solution, the solution will come from the stomach as well. Do I have more time? Is that it? So, your health is in your own hands. You must educate yourself. You are responsible for what you eat. You are responsible for your family. You are the Amir of your family. You have to educate yourself. Nobody has the responsibility to teach you. You have to learn yourself, and you must become awake, because that toxic stuff that enters into your blood, you put it there with your own hands. Your brain told you to do it. Your brain was conditioned by all the signals that you see around you from your TV and from your media. So cut yourself off from that. Ask Allah Ta'ala to help you. Then read Surah Al-Kahf. Allah Ta'ala will protect you from deception. The road will open for the solution, and then it will be easy. These are new diseases. We have caused them ourselves. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب
Jazakallah khair jaza to Dr. Farid Salih for that presentation. He will give us some of the solutions in terms of the 50 types of things that we require for the body for it to function optimally, inshallah ta'ala. We also need to take a bit of an ad break. We'd like to thank our sponsors. Firstly, we'd like to thank Willerton Oil Products for their sponsorship for this evening's program. Jazakallah khair jaza, inshallah ta'ala. May Allah bless you and continue giving you barakah, inshallah ta'ala, in spite of the negative publicity. Okay, I'd like to call upon Dr. Imran Nazar Hussain to kindly come forward and give his comments on the two presentations made on environment as well as health, inshallah ta'ala, from a perspective of eschatology. Hundreds of people have asked me, well, I can be a bit, hyperbolic, but eschatology basically is that part of theology which deals with death, which deals with the day of judgment, which deals with the final days and the final destiny of man and the soul and all of these issues. That's I think it's more of a Christian term which they've applied to it there, but it's because of the English language we're utilizing that issue. Right? We talk about it as the signs of the hour. Jazakallah khair jaza.
نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم. Brother Chairman, Brother Nazir Jamal and Dr. Farid Saleh, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I want to congratulate those who organized this evening's program on a subject of such great importance, the subject of human health and its linkages with the environment, and then all of that linked to Akhirus Zamaan, Akhirus Zamaan. In the English language it's called eschatology. In French it's also called eschatology, or the subject of the end time. There is a hint in the Quran of what is going to happen, and that we have just been seeing what is happening when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent them out of Jannah. فَإِمَّا يَأْتِيَنَّكُم مِّنِّي هُدًى فَمَن تَبِعَ هُدَايَ فَلَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ. He sent them out of Jannah, and he says, guidance is going to come from me. You follow that, you have no problems. But then he also said, وَلَكُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ مُسْتَقَرٌّ وَمَتَاعٌ إِلَىٰ حِينٍ. That the earth will remain for you as habitat, a place where you can reside, and a place which will sustain you for only a specific period of time. A warning that the earth will not always sustain us. And there is going to come a time when we're going to have the problem that we now have. And then again, this was Surah Al-Baqarah, again in Surah Al-Kahf. Inna بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إنا جعلنا ما على الأرض زينة لها لنبلوهم أيهم أحسن عملا. We gave this earth to you, this green and luscious earth to you, with so much beauty that you could enjoy that beauty. But we also gave it to you that you will be tested to see which of you, with your respect for the earth, respect for the resources of the earth, respect for water, would show respect in consuming the resources of the earth. لِنَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. Best in conduct. And when we look at that test, we see that the so-called primitive peoples were more successful than this so-called best civilization that it has ever been the misfortune of mankind to experience, the modern age. وَإِنَّا لَجَاعِلُونَ مَا عَلَيْهَا صَعِيدًا جُرُزًا. But be warned that this lush green earth which we have given to you, one day we will transform it into a dust bowl. Suratul Kahf. And Suratul Kahf is the surah of Akhirus Zamaan. And so Brother Nazir spoke about resource depletion, of how we are wasting the resources of the earth. One of the most important of all is water. And he showed you photographs of lakes which are, the water level is going down, down, down. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala warned us about Gog and Magog. Yes, 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 yes. I don't know why I have to keep on teaching and teaching and teaching the subject for 20 years now. And yet they say, the establishment says, oh, Gog and Magog have not as yet been released. How do you know that? Based on a solitary hadith, which you have misunderstood. And in the process of basing your entire conclusion on the subject on one solitary hadith, you've disrespected the Book of Allah. You have disrespected the Quran, and you'll pay a price for it. This is frustration talking to you today. Frustration. Because if you want to study Gog and Magog, you don't begin with a hadith and end with one hadith. No, that's schoolboy stuff. Even schoolboys would make that mistake, but they made. You will begin with the Book of Allah. That's where you will start. Have they done that? Have they done that? When you start with the Book of Allah, then the Book of Allah will explain to you the universal facade that both speakers have spoken of. Everything is being corrupted, and yet we eat biryani and go home and sleep. The Book of Allah explains all things. Yes, it does. And the evidence is now all around us, drowning us, that for the first time in human history, everything is being corrupted. Everything is being destroyed. Over depletion of all resources, and most important of all, water, which Jamal spoke about, Nazir spoke about. And what is the explanation in the Quran? Inna ya'juja wa ma'juja mufsiduna fil ard. But I have a message for them. I have a message for them. One day they will be in the grave. Yes. And in the grave they will get to know of their disrespect for the Quran. Not go into the Quran, that the Quran will explain to you what both speakers have spoken of so eloquently. That when Gog and Magog are released, they're very thirsty. This is symbolic language. They will drink up all the water of the world. They will pass by a river and drink it dry. This is how we bring eschatology to link it with medical studies and with scientific studies. And so this is a lovely combination here tonight. The rivers are drying up. The lakes are drying up. The streams are drying up. Is it happening by accident, or is there an explanation for it? It's Gog and Magog. The Great Lakes of Canada. And now you have to have new navigation to navigate through the lakes because the water level has gone down so low. But I want to add to the analysis, and tonight in just 15 minutes I can't take all of what they have presented. I'm taking only some to respond to you from Ilmu Akhirus Zamaan. Why the global warming? The water which is stored as ice out there. Why do they want it melted? So that tomorrow there'll be no water there. That's why. They don't want you to have water tomorrow. Why the climate change? The Prophet said, alayhi salatu wasalam, that the Dajjal will control the climate. That he will cause the rain to fall and he'll stop the rain from falling, and that's happening now. Why the sewage being pumped into the rivers and lakes that Nazir spoke about? The pollution, the environment, pollution of water, corruption of water, so that you cannot use that water. What are the risks of using recycled water? Same as recycled religion, you know. But what's the grand plan? The grand plan is in the hands of Dajjal, not of Gog and Magog. Gog and Magog are simply doing his work for him. He has a master plan. And you'll only be able to connect the dots of what is happening if you have the Book of Allah and you have Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, and you have scholars who are not schoolboys, who have proper methodology to study the Quran, and who will not make this colossal mistake of taking a solitary hadith in Sahih Muslim to come to the conclusion which you now trumpet with CNN and Al Jazeera and everything. Oh, Gog and Magog are not yet released. They'll only be released at that time when Nabi Isa alayhi salam comes and he kills Dajjal. Go ahead, stay with that. One day you'll go in your grave. I pray that before you go in your grave, you'll wake up. That's not right methodology. You go to the Quran. The Quran will explain. When you learn to connect the dots, you use proper methodology. And then you go to the Hadith. And then the Prophet ﷺ speak about Dajjal. And his master plan is there in that Hadith. He stopped the rain from falling. The first year, 1/3 will not fall. You've heard the Hadith already, all of you. 1/3 of the food will not grow, the crops. The second year, 2/3 of the rain will not fall. So 2/3 of the crops will not grow. The last year, no rain will fall. Nothing will grow, and every hoof animal will die. You've heard it before. So if we are alive at that time, and my opinion is this is going to come after the Malhama, or the Great War, or the nuclear war, and that's why they are now provoking Russia. Where will you get food from? You need water for food. This is why they are destroying all the water. And Allah will not solve your problem for you because you are disrespecting water in overconsumption, and you begin with your wudu. If I show you how the Prophet used to make wudu, and you go now to see how we make wudu, you'll cry, you'll weep. The tears will fall to see what wudu has become today from what it was. If you want food at that time, which should not be long from now, and there is no food, where will you get food from? The answer is only Israel. You want food? You come to Israel. You bow down to Israel, and you'll get the food. You want water? Come to us, and we give you the water. Otherwise, you will starve to death. In the next session, I'm going to stop now because my time is up. In the next session, we now have to look at solutions. What I have done is to link what the speakers have previously spoken about, link it to what the Quran and the Hadith have spoken about the signs of the last day. And I look forward now with very great interest to what our speakers are going to speak about as solutions to the problems.
Jazakallah khair jazak to Dr. Imran for that, for his comments on both the speakers' presentations. And you can see, we're coming together in terms of some of the issues that are being presented. And I'd like to call upon Brother Nazir Jamal to once again come forward and present his perspective in terms of solutions or possible solutions to some of these issues, inshallah ta'ala.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Shukran once again. It's a very simple set of slides now, but it starts off with new technology, a new world, new innovation, and I think that's what is the new thinking. So for the first thing of the energy crisis, we feel to reduce the amount of fossil fuels that we are using and depleting of the resources is to now use the natural resources. So in terms of solar, which is your sun, in terms of wind, which is obviously created with using windmills to create energy, and then obviously with water through hydroelectricity. Those are natural ways of now reducing the amount of resources that are being used or non-renewable resources. And so from a scientific point of view, we'll always have the sun, we'll always have the ocean somewhat, and we'll always have wind. So those are the things that we'll probably be using. But as you see, if you just go back to the slide there, from the first one, if you look at it from creating a clean energy future, so that's the one I first mentioned. The second one is reviving the world's oceans. So from the ocean perspective, that's where now maybe is the new source of water through desalination. Very expensive, lots of energy required, but then now revisiting how we can then find new ways to access to water. If you just go back, then obviously the next point there is defending the endangered wildlife and the wild species that we have. So again, that comes to the biodiversity aspect of creation and the nature. So protecting this wildlife that we have, the biodiversity that we had. Just one of the thoughts that came to me was the story of the bee. And the bee itself is such an important, it's a little bee, but it's such an important part it plays in biodiversity, in existence of even man. Because the bee is one of the insects, and scientists say that without the bee, there wouldn't be no world, because of the way that it now pollinates the land. And it's one of the most interesting animals, and I think the Quran speaks about the bee itself. But again, protecting the wildlife species. Then protecting our health by preventing pollution. So the pollution of the atmosphere from air, the land, the water, those are resources we have. New strategies in preventing that through now the greener way of living from our own houses and how we see ourselves, with regards to waste disposal. Finding new ways to create products that now are biodegradable, or products that can be reused rather than being just thrown away into the landfill sites. Again, ensuring safe and sufficient water. I spoke a little bit about that. And then fostering sustainable communities. And the word, a very buzzword, sustainable development. So this is about protecting your current, supply of resources so that the future resources are still available for our children and our children's children and generations to come. So it's again a sustainable way of using those resources from it be fossil fuels, some coal resources that we use, to the resources that are available generally. That was basically about 6 solutions that we had to the environmental crisis. Very simplistic way of looking at it. But just to conclude, it says the need for change in our daily lives and the movements of our government is growing. If humans continue moving forward in such a harmful way towards the future, then there'll be no future to consider. So by raising awareness in our local community, within our families, about the issues, about the concerns of the environment, you can help contribute to a more environmentally conscious and friendly place to live in. So that's some of the simple solutions that we can use. Obviously changing the mindset and creating awareness within ourselves in our masjids like this, mashallah, to talk about environmental issues so that we can, as Muslims and as people, go forward from there. Shukran.
Nazir Jamal, just one comment on what he said. In terms of all of the sustainable energy and so on, trust me, I've been doing a lot of homework in the past week in terms of sustainable development for the masjid and so on. Boy, is it expensive, right? And untenable in the sense that if you want to just generate 1 kVA of energy using solar power, you require 10 solar panels, and you require batteries to work with it. In order to generate 5, you need 50 panels. In fact, you'll end up with more solar panels than rooftop. So we need to come up with some very, very effective solutions very quickly if we want to save the world, so to speak, inshallah ta'ala. Dr. Farid Salih will come forward and present some of his health solutions in terms of being oil-free and, of course, going back to ghee, I think, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum once again. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In trying to solve a problem, the first thing to do is to understand it, then the solution presents itself. As far as the human body is concerned, Allah Ta'ala has made the human body that it heals itself. This is a very important thing to understand. Think about that for a minute, that it heals itself. When you cut yourself, there's nobody coming there to come and repair it. You see the blood clotting to prevent the loss of blood. You see, the most we can do is to make sure that if the wound is too large, is to bring it close together so it makes the job easier. But the healing is inherent inside the human body. Your car doesn't have that quality. So if the mechanic does not put in the right part, it's not going to get better while it's in the garage. But the human body, it heals itself, and the implication of that is profound. The implication is this, that if you have an illness, it means only one of two things: that something is preventing you from getting better, or you're not giving the body enough building material to do its job. That's all. Nothing else. So what are the things that might prevent you from getting better? These are the toxins that are in the air, in the water. Now they want to put poisons inside the aquifers by what is called hydraulic fracturing or fracking. And they don't want to tell us what these chemicals are. This is the reserve of water, fossil water, that has been there for thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of years. And they want to pollute it with chemicals. And they don't want to tell us what these chemicals are. What are these things going to do to us? So therefore, first things first, that is our rule. First things first. The first thing you do is remove toxins from your life. Make sure your water is clean. It must be filtered. There are certain things that cannot be filtered. You must do research and find out, because your family's health depends upon it. Water itself is a thing that we don't understand fully of how it works. It's got structure. It's got information. It is such an important thing that Allah Ta'ala told us, I have made every living thing out of water. So if you take the water out, or if you pollute it, you are going to destroy life. And that is what we are doing. Yajuj and Majuj are hell-bent on destroying the water supply of the earth. So first of all, make sure you are drinking. Now at our level, make sure it's filtered. And you get a proper filter. Okay? Then Allah Ta'ala told us, as far as our food is concerned, we are eating toxic food. So the toxic foods, I will give you 4 of them. There are plenty, but I will choose 4 of them that you say that if you remove this from your diet, it will make a big change for you. The first one is wheat. It's supposed to be the staff of life. But today, it is stuffing your life. And in more ways than one, it is causing diseases in your brain, it's causing inflammation of the heart, it's causing every disease you can think of. Today, there are 144 diseases directly linked to consuming this wheat. And very soon, they are going to be spraying glyphosate on it, which is Roundup. And this herbicide is so dangerous that it was banned completely in Sri Lanka at the end of last year. Why? Because people working in rice paddies suddenly started getting acute renal failure. And it was linked to the herbicide that they were spraying on the seeds. Their water is hard water, so there are lots of minerals. And a combination of this is fatal for the kidney, because a combination of this makes metals precipitate out, and it clogs up your kidneys. People were just, getting renal failure, and the government was astonished. It was traced to this herbicide and pesticide. So if you remove toxins, herbicides, pesticides, all the things that are found in food and water, that is the first thing to do. So don't look for trouble. The second thing that ought to be nourishing but is deadly poison is milk. This milk that we are consuming, the only thing that resembles original milk is the color. It's white. Nothing else is the same. Because this milk comes, it is pasteurized. It comes from cows that are fed things that they are not designed to eat. They are fed corn. This corn's ratio of omega-3s and 6 is completely different, which is reflected inside the meat and inside the fat. So when you eat this meat, it is dangerous for you. That is why they say red meat is dangerous for you. Not because red meat is dangerous, but because the manner in which this cow, innocent beast that Allah Ta'ala gave us for food and for nourishment, is treated. They are treated in feedlots where they give them growth hormone, recombinant bovine growth. This is a genetically modified thing to make it fat because they sell it by weight. Then they give it estrogen. It accelerates the growth. Now because it accelerates the growth, they want it to produce more milk. It normally produces 1.5 to 2 liters. Now it produces 25 to 30 liters. Now the udder of the cow hangs to the ground and the udders are full of pus. Why? Because of the inflammation there. So now they have to give the cow 54 different antibiotics. And all of these are coming out in the milk. So when you drink that, you are introducing a toxin into your body that increases breast cancer in females and prostate cancer in males. Ever wondered why prostate cancer and breast cancer have gone up so much? It's from the milk, among other things. So stop the milk completely. That means you'll find it in, wherever you find milk, yogurt, cheese. Yogurt, we are told, is full of sugar. It's full of all kinds of toxins. We use strawberry yogurt. How do you think they make it pink? They take beetles and they crush the beetles and they extract the dye from there. And you think you are eating strawberries. In the meantime, you are consuming beetles. You see? And the sugar in there. So the milk, you must completely discard. Yogurt, cheese, butter, cream, ice cream made from that milk. Now, if you get milk that comes from a cow that eats only grass, that is not given recombinant bovine growth hormone, that is not given all these injections, not given all, and the milk is unpasteurized, drink it. That is natural. It's not a problem. If you can find such a thing in today's age. Okay? So the only thing that is the same is the color. And they dare to call it milk. It's a completely different thing. We are living in such an age of deception where things, where a poison is called a food. You see? What about sugar? It's white, it's sweet, and it's deadly. Sugar, when sugar enters your body has got very, very profound defenses against sugar being let loose inside the blood. It raises your insulin level. When your insulin level goes up, there is something in your blood vessel, it's called nitric oxide, it's a gas. It makes it relax. Now the insulin stops that nitric oxide from being formed. Now your arteries can't relax, now you got hypertension. The sugar goes into your cell, the insulin, your cell, fat cells have got an entrance and an exit. The insulin closes the exit and opens the entrance. So fat starts entering but can never get out. So now you start getting fat because your insulin levels are high. Okay? What else does it do? It has got myriad negative things. It raises the inflammation levels in your body. And we know now that inflammation and oxidative stress is what is responsible for most of the diseases from head to toe. You got gout, you got inflammation and oxidative stress. You got meningitis, inflammation, oxidative stress. You got Parkinson's disease, inflammation, oxidative stress. You got a headache, inflammation, oxidative stress inside your arterial wall. Okay? Today, there is no doubt among those people who have read the research about the dangers of genetically modified food. Properly, it's called transgenic food. So, transgenic food has been closely associated with liver failure, kidney failure, damage to the reproductive organs, so infertility rates are shooting up. Today in this country, in South Africa, 96% of the corn is genetically modified. As a GP in a rural town, I am seeing infertility cases going up. As soon as they stop GMO, fortunately, if you change the diet a little bit and if they listen, after 3 months, you get changes in the blood. You see? So there are things that can be done. So if you want to stop eating anything to do with flour, bread, biscuits, cakes, pasta, pizza. You see? Fish and chips, because it's dipped in flour. If it has got flour in it, how much? Even a gram. It will initiate the whole process. Are there any people exempt from this? We used to think 1 in 110 people are affected. Then it became 1 in 60. Then it became 1 in 11. Now we realize everyone is affected. We used to think that it only affects the intestine. Now we know that there are extra intestine effects from the head to the toe, from this flour. Now they are genetically modifying it, which makes it even more deadly. You see? So wheat, leave it. Milk, cut it out. Sugar, no artificial sweeteners as well. I am talking now the things that will prevent you from healing. And genetically modified foods. All chemicals, all man-made chemicals, they have no place in the human diet. So what must you eat then? There's only 50 nutrients the body requires. You must eat, and what is Allah Ta'ala's instruction to us as far as our food is concerned? Only 2 things. It must be halal and it must be tayyib. That's all. We all know about halal, but how many people have spoken about tayyib food? And what is tayyib food? Tayyib food contains all these 50 nutrients in the correct proportion, in the correct quantity. So if you eat tayyib food, you don't have to worry about illness, because Allah Ta'ala designed us, He designed the human body to take you from birth to death through its various stages in comfort and in ease. But we have brought this trouble on ourselves by believing Dajjal's propaganda. And the Yajuj and Majuj who are telling us that toxic things are food. And they are banning food. Real food. In America, they are banning whole milk that comes from cows that eat grass. They ban it. They send SWAT teams to your farm if you do that. But the toxic milk they sell to you, that's fine. So therefore, the world is now upside down. If you want to understand the world, sometimes I think to myself, whatever you hear and see, it is the opposite. Then it's better to understand the world. It's easier to understand the world like that. So what must you eat? Not only organic, but it must be beyond organic, because it contains the most nutrients. So you must start learning how to eat properly. That is a skill that you must acquire. People become streetwise to survive in the city. People develop business skills to survive in business. Well, this is a survival skill. So you must inquire yourself. Go to lectures, read books, because this is a vital skill that we will need in the next 30 years even more. And without this, they are going to pick us off like flies. Okay? So, human body heals itself. If you have an illness, it's only one of 2 reasons: taking in too much toxins, not taking enough nutrients. Cut out the toxins and increase your nutrients. And then inshallah, the shifa comes from Allah Ta'ala, so you make dua to Allah Ta'ala. Hold on to the rope of Allah, because we are in for a very bumpy ride for the next couple of years, okay? وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين.
Jazakallah, Dr. Salih, for those solutions. Right? Very simply put, one, no tablet, no medication ever or will ever cure an illness. Tablets don't cure an illness. They just relieve the symptoms. One. Two, in terms of what Dr. Farid Sali said, from now onwards, I think we should just stick to khajur and water. There's nothing else that is pure enough for us to eat. That too, the khajur too, hopefully is from Medina and from the ajwa and so on. They know from those original date farms from the Prophet ﷺ, safest option. Anything beyond that day, fast for the rest of the month. We'll be fine, inshallah. Sumu fasahu, the Prophet ﷺ said, fast, and you will gain your health, inshallah ta'ala. We'd like to ask Dr. Imran Hussain to, inshallah ta'ala, conclude with some of his solutions and his responses to the comments by our panelists.
Dr. Farid Saleh has inundated us with so much of very valuable information. I want to concentrate more now on commenting on him than on Nazir. Two ayat of the Quran and one hadith. The first one will intrigue you. We realize that the reason, the explanation for the universal fasad in the political system, in the economic system, in the monetary system, in the environment, in the male-female relationship, in the educational system, in sports, in agriculture, in industry. The universal facade must have an explanation. The Quran says it has come to explain all things. And the explanation is right there facing us in our faces. Inna ya'juja wa ma'juja mufsiduna fil ard. It's Gog and Magog. So if Allah introduces the subject of Gog and Magog in Surah Al-Kahf, He should tell us something about solution in Surah Al-Kahf. And He does. But agonizingly, He does it with only 3 words. So you really have to ponder, to penetrate those 3 words. Zulkarnain is about to travel and to confront the people who are attacking people, Gog and Magog, the 3rd journey. What about the 2nd journey? To the direction of the rising of the sun. There he came across a people, لَمْ نَجْعَلْ لَهُمْ مِن دُونِهَا سِتْرًا, 3 words, apart from the prepositions. A people for whom we had provided nothing more beyond this, as sitra, that which covers. What does he mean by these 3 words? كذلك. And now he responds with only 1 word. This is really imtihan in the Quran. Imtihan. The Zulkarnain left them as they were. And there is the hint. كذلك وقد أحطنا بما لديه خبرا. And Allah, I understood him, I hope you understand him. I understood him, I hope you understand him. They were a people who were living a way of life which was in total harmony with nature. Today we call it a primitive way of life. If we are to learn survival skills for tomorrow, it is that we have to go back to, and Dr. Farid spoke to us about that. How did they used to live? That's how we have to learn to live again. And so, we go now to, again, Surah Al-Kahf, And the young man slept for 300 years. And if you sleep for 300 years and you wake up, I'm sure you're going to be very hungry. So, فَبَعَثُوا أَحَدَكُمْ بِوَرِكِكُمْ هَذِهِ إِلَى الْمَدِينَةِ. So send one of you with this money. Let him go and buy some food. بِوَرِكِكُمْ هَذِهِ إِلَى. Let him go to the city. فَلْيَنْظُرْ أَيُّهَا أَزْكَى. فَلْيَنْظُرْ أَيُّهَا أَزْكَى. Ta'am. Go search for that food. Dr. Farid spoke of halal and tayyib. And here Allah introduces a third term. Search for that food which is azka, purest. In Akhirus Zamaan, if you want to survive, that's what you have to do. Search for that food which is purest, which incidentally takes us back to the word warik. Wrong methodology. You take one word in the Quran, and with one solitary word you build a monetary system? That's worse than schoolboy methodology. That's stupidity. Pardon the violent language. Yes, I get fatwa. Imagine that. That warik is from warak, which means paper. So Surah Al-Kahf is saying paper money is halal. You come to that conclusion with one word? Well, then you'll also conclude that Iblis was an angel. Yeah. Iblis was an angel because the command was given to the angels and they all bowed down except him. So logically, he had to be an angel. So warik, there has to be paper money, so paper money halal. This is wrong methodology. You've got to go to the whole Quran. And when you go to the whole Quran, you'll find the word dinar. The dinar in the Quran is not made of paper. No. You'll find the word dirham in the Quran. So take your paper and throw it in the garbage bin. That's not money. Similarly, go search for that food which is azka, indicating there's not only the monetary system which is going to be corrupted, it's the food which is going to be corrupted that you have to eat to survive. And you have to go and search now for that food which is purest. And then the Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the time will come when the believer, in order to preserve his faith, will have to flee to the mountainsides and to places where rain falls. And take with him some, help me somebody, some sheep and goats, But you won't be taking sheep and goats that are being fed with genetically modified feed, would you? And you would not be injecting them with hormone injections and so on. Dr. Farid is the one who is expert on this, not Imran Hussain. It has to be the purest. The milk that you will drink will be, that's how they used to live in Medina. There's my flock of sheep, go and drink some milk. And they'll go to the sheep and they'll drink the milk directly from the sheep. That's how they lived. That's the primitive way of life. And that's how Zulkarnain is leaving us. Kazalik. He left them as they were. Kazalik. One word in the Quran. Zulkarnain had the good sense and the wisdom to leave them undisturbed. And that's the way of life the Quran is guiding us to. Return to a way of life which is in harmony, complete harmony with nature that Allah created. So take with you some sheep and goats. And you live in the remote countryside, of course, out of the city, because that's where all the diseases are. It's not just organic food. It's not just natural milk and meat. But what about the fish? You see, that fella out there might be suffering from that disease. And when he goes to the toilet, it goes out with the feces. And then the sewage system which came from Gog and Magog pumps it into the rivers and to the lakes, and then the fish eats it because there's no chance of decomposition in water. If you take a hole and you bury it, it'll be decomposed, the sun. But if it goes into water, there's no possibility of decomposition. So it remains then in its pristine glory until you eat the fish. And then you will take in not only that which is najas. I'm eating his feces. But in addition to that, the disease will be transferred to you. So you're going to have to watch where you get your fish from. It's not only that, but our chairman just made mention of it. When the body, I hate to go into this field when we have medical doctors here. When the body is deprived of food for long hours, the body gets a chance to recuperate, to heal itself. This is why fasting. But it is possible to fast every day. Every day you can fast. Every day you can eat, and yet every day you can fast if you combine your meals. If, for example, you have a little breakfast in the morning, shortly after Fajr, you go back home and you have a little breakfast. And then for the rest of the day you don't eat. How many hours the body has to now recuperate? If you feel hungry during the day, what do you eat? Answer: fruits. The fruits will help you to heal. This is not genetically modified food. This is not food with chemical fertilizers and so on, but natural fruit. And when you have your evening meal, you just watch what you eat and how much you eat. And give the body a chance to digest the food before you sleep, so you don't eat a mountain of food late at night and then go to sleep. So in this way, fasting comes to help us. The guidance of Surah Al-Kahf, of returning to that way of life which is in harmony with nature, and searching for that which is azka, purest. One last comment, and I don't want to frighten you. One of the signs of the last day is dukhan, smoke. And the Quran says it's going to be plainly visible. So this is not symbolism. No, it's plainly visible. You can have your opinions on the subject, because we have not been told, neither in the Quran nor the Hadith, of the origin of the smoke. But if we do have nuclear war, and thousands of nuclear weapons exploding, and that seems to be what is coming up now between NATO and Russia, then thousands of nuclear weapons exploding are going to be causing thousands of mushroom clouds. Perhaps that is what the Prophet ﷺ was speaking of when he spoke of in one hadith of 3 days of darkness, and in another hadith of 40 days of darkness, and the Christians have it in their eschatology as well, of certain number of days of darkness. I can't remember how many days they have, meaning no sunlight. So the smoke may very well be the mushroom clouds, which will come from nuclear warfare, which does not seem to be long from now. I mentioned to you that I had a dream when I was in Iran in the month of September, twice the same night, in which I saw nuclear war, nuclear missiles being shot into the sky, and I saw that Pakistan was a part of that war. When I had that dream, then I remember the dream I had 2 years before 9/11. 2 years before 9/11. And when 9/11 took place, the dream came true. So on that, I came to the conclusion, this is Imran, this is knowledge for you, not for the rest. If you want to share it with them, absolutely, so good for them. But I have to use this, that I have 2 years to prepare. for nuclear war. When you have no sunlight for so many days, what's going to happen to the temperature of the earth? It's going to be freezing cold. And you don't have any electricity to warm you up. Huh? You don't have any central heating to warm you up. So how are you going to survive at that time? When it's going to be freezing cold and no sunlight. One of the things we can do is to get out of the cities, go to small communities in the remote countryside and use mud for building houses, thick walls of mud. Because when you use mud, when it is cold outside, it's warm inside. And when it's hot outside, it's cold inside. Living in accordance with nature. We also, of course, stock up on food and on water. And since there will be no sunlight, those who want to buy batteries can buy batteries. But nature gave us oil and use oil lamps for light. We pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bless those who now return to the Quran, return to Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, to understand the reality of the world today in which everything is collapsing. Everything is collapsing. It's not just a corrupted world, it's a collapsing world. And then to return to the Quran and to Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, to learn how to respond appropriately. And the response is in Suratul Kahf, more than any other surah of the Quran. رَبَّنَا تَقَبَّلْ مِنَّا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ وَتُبْ عَلَيْنَا يَا مَوْلَانَا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ التَّوَّابُ الرَّحِيمُ بِرَحْمَتِكَ يَا أَرْحَمَ الرَّاحِمِينَ آمين.